Good morning, dear students. Welcome to my class. I am Mrs. Snehal Sudhir More, and today I am going to teach you Chapter 1 of SST. Lesson's name: What, Where, How, and When. Children, before we begin the lesson, I would like to ask you one question. What is history? History is nothing but learning about the past events. For example, if you want to know what happened yesterday, what would you do? You will listen to the radio, watch television, read a newspaper, right? If you want to know what happened last year, you will ask it to somebody who remembers it. But what if you want to know what happened long, long ago? What will you do in such case? This is what we are going to learn in this chapter. Let us see how it can be done. To begin with, we should know about the past, right? So, there are several things that we can find out. What are they? What people are? The kinds of clothes people wore? The houses in which people lived? We can also find out about the games children played, the stories they heard, the plays they saw, the songs they sang. See, we can also find out about the lives of hunters, herders, farmers, rulers, merchants, priests, craftsmen, musicians, scientists, etc. We can also find out about the games children played in those days, the stories they heard, the plays they saw, the songs they sang. Isn't it interesting, dear children? Now the question arises, where did people live? People had lived along the banks of rivers for several 100,000 years. People who lived on the banks of rivers were skilled gatherers. That is, they mainly gathered their food. Now, why do people prefer living on the banks of the river? Because children, they knew about the vast wealth of plants in the surrounding forest and collected roots, fruits, and other forest produce for their food. Okay. Now they also hunted animals for their food. Now the question arises, how did the agriculture development in ancient India occurred? Observe the given map carefully and try to locate and find the Suleiman and Kirtar hills in the northwest in the given map. It's marked for you on the map. Let us learn about it. Suleiman and Kirtar hills. Some of the areas where women and men first began to grow crops such as wheat and barley about 8,000 years ago are located here. People also began rearing animals like sheep, goat, and cattle, and they lived in villages. Now observe the second map and try to locate Garo Hills in the northeast and Vindhyas in the central India. It is been marked with the red pen on the map. Let us learn about Garo Hills to the northeast and the Vindhyas in the central India. These were some of the other areas where agriculture had developed. The places where rice was first grown are to the north of Vindhyas. I repeat again, the places where rice was first grown are to the north of Vindhyas. Keep it in mind. Now, next map. Observe the given map and try to locate river Indus and its tributaries. Now, river Indus and its tributaries. You all must be thinking, what is the word tributary mean? What are tributaries? Tributaries are nothing but the smaller rivers that flow into a larger river. Means many small rivers together form a larger river. Those small rivers are known as tributaries. About 4700 years ago, some of the earliest cities flourished on the banks of the rivers. We have already mentioned why people preferred living on the banks of the river, because it was easy for them to gather food. Later, about 2500 years ago, cities developed on the banks of Ganga and its tributaries, and also along the sea coast. Now the next map. Observe river Ganga and its tributary Sun on the given map. The Ganga and its tributary Sun. In ancient times, the area along these rivers to the south of Ganga was known as Magad. Now it's lying in the state of Bihar. Its rulers were very powerful and set up a large kingdom. Kingdoms were set up in the other parts of the country as well as throughout the people that travel from one part of the subcontinent to the another. Hills and the high mountains, including Himalayan deserts, rivers, and the seas, made journeys very dangerous but never impossible. So men and women moved in the search of livelihood as also to escape from the natural disasters like floods and droughts. See, dear children, here the journey was very dangerous for them because in the ancient period there were no vehicles, right? Nowadays we are using vehicles to travel from one place to another, but in those times there were no vehicles, and it was not convenient for them to climb the mountains, to cross the rivers, so it was very dangerous at that time. Then too, from the fear of floods and droughts, people traveled from one place to the another in the search of livelihood. Sometimes men marched in armies conquering other lands. Besides, merchants traveled with caravans or ships carrying valuable goods from place to place. The religious teachers walked from village to village, town to town, stopping to offer instruction and advice on the way. Finally, some people travel driven by spirit of adventure, wanting to discover new and exciting places. All this led to the sharing of ideas between people. Now, the people have started traveling from one place to another. So, it was easy for the people to share their ideas with one another. This led to the share of experience. This led to the share of knowledge and wisdom. Now, how do people and why do people travel nowadays? Look at the map. 1. Once more, hills, mountains, seas, and natural frontiers of the subcontinent. In the early days, as I said before, it was very difficult to cross the frontiers. Those who wanted could and did scale the mountains and cross the seas. Okay, these movements of people enriched our culture and traditions. People who have shaped new ways of carving stone, composing music, and even cooking food over several hundred of years. Now, names of the land. Two of the words we often use for our country are India and Bharat. Now, where did these words come from? Have you ever wondered about it, dear children? The word India comes from the Indus called Sindhu in Sanskrit. The Iranian and Greeks who came through the northwest about 2500 years ago were familiar with the Indus, called it Hindus or Indus, and the land to the east of the river was called India. Do you understand, children, how the word India emerged? Now, the next word, Bharat. The name Bharat was used for the group of people who who lived in the northwest and who were mentioned in the Rig Veda. Rig Veda is the earliest composition in Sanskrit, which is about 3500 years ago. Later, it was used for our country. I hope you have understood the lesson, and now it's time for today's homework. Today's homework, I would like to ask you a question, dear children. How did people in India did farming and gathered forest good during ancient times? See, you can search for it on internet. If possible, you can gather images and stick it in your notebook, and at least you should write 10 points on it. Thank you, dear children, for watching the video. Have a nice day.